Hey guys, Mike Toy, Bonsai Boise. So today I'm going to be working on one of my several silver maples that I have. I've had this for, I think, going on about 8 years now. It started as a seed that just fell in the yard and sprouted up one day, and I, shaped it and used some twisty ties at the time. Didn't really know what I was doing because I was kind of new. But I like the way it's turning out. So what I'm going to do is walk you through some of my experiences with silver maples, both the pros and the cons. And then I'm going to trim some of these branches back because, as you can see, a lot of them are getting kind of long and leggy. There's probably 7 or 8 sets of buds on this branch here, for example. So I'm going to trim these ones back to about the 2 sets of buds, give or take. I'm going to do that on all of them. So I'm going to go through on all of it and do that. I'm not going to repot it today. I'm going to wait another month or 2 before I do that. It's still mid-January, and frankly, I just don't want to do it right now. So I'm going to wait until we're a little closer to spring so that I can do it outside, and it's a little safer for the tree too, the closer to spring we are for that. I'll show you one thing I like about this before we get started. It really has 2 options for a front, and I've never been able to decide which one I want to do. So I got this as a front, or somewhere in there as a front. So really either side could be front or back. So I like it. I'm going to keep that going. I'm not going to totally commit to one side or the other. I'm just going to keep it going like that and let it look good from both sides. And then I've got some stuff that I'm going to try putting on the tips of these branches after I cut it. And I'll tell you my reasoning for that. So follow me and I'll walk you through my process, and we'll take a closer look and start doing some trimming. All right, so I'm gonna give you a closer look here. Here it is. As you can see, it's rising. I don't know, I'm not sure how well you can tell actually, but it's rising about 1 inch, give or take, above the lip here of the pot, which is an indication that it's full of roots. And you can actually see a lot of the roots. It's been in this pot for about 3 years now, so it definitely needs to be repotted. I'm not gonna do it today, but it definitely needs to be done soon. So, like I was saying earlier, I'll wait another month or 2 for that. But today we're gonna go ahead and dive in on some of the branches here and get to trimming. So I'm gonna grab my clippers and I'll start trimming and talking about some of the pros and cons of these silver maples and why I recommend using them despite everything that you hear out there, which would tell you not to. All right, so I've been looking at this tree. I set it up outside of my window there so that I could just look out at it all day, anytime I wanted. And I've been thinking about what I want to do with it. And I thought for a while about getting rid of the top part here and reducing it in size, but I decided against it because and this kind of dovetails right into one of the downsides of silver maples, is that it's really hard to reduce leaf size on these things. It can be done, but not very easily and not for long term. So in other words, if you defoliate it in the middle of the growing season, the leaves will grow back smaller, then eventually they just get bigger again. So it's not like some of the other maples that tend to stay small after you do that once or twice. So that's, if anything, that's about the biggest downside to working with a silver maple. So they really need to be bigger in size, I guess is what I'm getting at. They can't be a real small miniature bonsai. So I'm not going to reduce it in size. I'm going to let it keep going, but I am going to get rid of some of these longer branches. And then there is one big cut that I'm going to do, and it's this guy right here. As you can see where the trunk comes up, is here. It really has, we got 2 problems going. One is that we got 3 branches coming out of the same spot, which is a big no-no because you get reverse taper or inverse taper right there. You can see a little bit of a bulge happening already. And 2, this branch here is just very long and straight. It just comes straight out, and then it comes out here and it starts to ramify. So after I thought about it for a while, I realized I'm just going to get rid of this altogether. So here goes. And I'll clean this up in a second. So pretty big cut. And while we're talking about it here, I'll tell you, I'm going to try something new to seal up the wounds on here. I've heard in the past, somebody told me this and I've tried it, that you can use just regular Elmer's glue to seal up wounds on the tree, and that it works. And I tried it and it does. Here's the downside to it. The downside to Elmer's glue is that it's white and it's you can see it. Even after it dries, once it gets wet, like little particles of dust get in there and it just looks ugly. So I found this today, this clear glue. I don't know if it'll be any better or not, but we're going to try it. It is safe and non-toxic and it's washable. So my thinking is when I put it on, it'll seal it up long enough to kind of heal. And then after it gets rained on a little bit, it'll wash away and the wound will have healed. So that's the thought. We're going to try it. I'm not going to clean this up yet. I'm going to keep going on this. So let's look for some more. That's the only big cut I'm going to make. Other than that, I'm just going to take a lot of these back. I'm going to make some decisions on here like this. Once again, we've got 3 branches coming out of the same spot. And I think what we're going to get rid of is the one going in. Now I'll tell you some pros to working with silver maples that I have liked, is that it's okay if you make a mistake on these things. They are very forgiving. I've used the analogy in the past and I'll use it again. You can basically cut these things in half and they'll keep growing. So they're very forgiving. So if you do one wrong or you make a mistake or you do something that you regret after a while, I wouldn't worry too much. They bounce back real quick. Here's another one where we've got 3 branches coming out of the same spot. I'm actually going to get rid of the middle branch there. And take it back to just a few sets of buds. Right here, same thing. This one we've got a long leggy branch. I'm not sure if we even need it because again, the 3 branches from one spot thing. So got to make some decisions there. Yeah, earlier what I was talking about, I was thinking about taking it back to right here and just getting rid of this whole top part, but decided against it. I just don't think that it's thick enough yet to start working on taper, and you just wouldn't really notice much. And my goal for it is for this to get a lot thicker, probably 3 or 4 times as thick before I really start to refine it too much. So yeah, in the end, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of take it back to there, and then I'll revisit that in a minute. Some of these others, I'm going to take them back to 2 or 3 sets of buds. Yeah, when I first started in bonsai, I started with silver maples, and it was sort of accidental. At my last house, I had a giant silver maple in the backyard, and it would drop those little helicopter leaves, or excuse me, little helicopter seeds. And I just started from there. You know, I dug a few up, put them in pots, started to kind of shape them and play with them a little bit and experiment with them. Some I actually just let grow in the ground and I still would wire them up. Nowhere that says you can't do that. This was one of them actually. And I started to realize how fun bonsai was, and that's how I got going in it. I was just doing stuff like that. I'm hoping you can see this okay. It's always tricky getting the lighting just right inside. Lighting is my eternal nemesis indoors. It never wants to cooperate. The camera eye is so much different than the human eye. It always looks good until you do it on camera and you look at it and you're like, wow, it looks terrible. All right, so we're making progress. I'm not getting too crazy with these. I'm just taking off the tips on some of them, trimming some of these longer ones back. This one here, take it back to a couple sets of buds. This one's starting to ramify already. We'll let it keep going. I'm really just gonna let this grow more than anything. I don't want it to get too long and leggy, but it's still in the development phase. And when it's in the development phase, you don't want to get too picky. At least I don't, because what's the point? It's just gonna keep changing as it evolves. So I don't get too picky with the refinement part while it's in the development phase. But you want to nip some of these things in the bud. You know, here we got 2 branches coming out of 1 branch. Like, that's definitely not what you want at all. So let's see. And they're both on the inside too. I'm gonna get rid of one of them. Let the other one be. Just take it back a little. Oops. We've got some spots on the trunk. We've got a lot of buds popping out of spots, you know, right here. And, you know, you can usually just kind of rub those right off. A couple other things I'll point out as I gain more experience with these silver maples is that you can see that if you don't take a concave chunk out of the branch, what happens here is that it builds up a little bulge and it heals. They heal over really quick, but they form that big knot that you don't want. So that's why it's kind of important to dig in there a little bit. Okay. I think that's pretty good for now. Just take some of these tips. Some of these areas here, for example, you can see a whole bunch of buds coming out of one spot. We're going to trim some of those off. I don't want that. Get rid of some of these dead ends here. Spin it back around, work on this part. I'm thinking this is a little long and leggy. I am actually going to take this back quite a bit. Like that. I'll clean up this little nub here. I'll leave some nub. You want a little nub, not a lot of nub. Here we've got another, you know, little buds popping out all over the place, which is good. That's a sign that it's healthy. But it's also bad because you don't want buds popping out all over the place. So I swear before I started this video, I looked at it for a while and I saw all kinds of things I was going to do. And now I'm looking at it and I can't really see quite as many. I think I'm going to take this back a little more. Little dead branch there. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that. I was kind of waiting to see how that went, but that's how it went. So the long story short on silver maples is that they're really fun material to work with. I've enjoyed them. You can do a lot of things with them. They're very forgiving, and I've got one that I've made a few videos on that if you look through the silver maple playlist, you'll find it. It's one where it does a complete loop and then keeps growing. That's a fun one. I actually get a lot of comments and questions on that one, and it's still in the refinement stage too. I don't know if I have any trees that are not in some kind of a development stage. I'm sorry, I meant to say development stage, not refinement stage. I don't know if I have any that are not, you know, still being developed or at least refined in some way. I don't have any that I'm like, okay, it's perfect, just like that. I don't know if that even exists. Maybe it does. I'm sure somebody out there, Walter Paul's probably got a bunch that he's just happy with just the way they are. But I don't. Just doing a little bit of maintenance here. Some dead wood there from a branch that I trimmed off, must have been last year or the year before. All right. So I think, no, actually I take it back. That's one of the trouble spots I noticed earlier. We got 3 branches coming out of one spot and we don't want that. I'm gonna get rid of the one growing on the inside here. There we go. I knew there was a spot like that that I was looking for, and that was it, I think. So you can see here, let me make sure you can see that. So you can see here this chunk that I was biting out earlier. See how it's wet? So it's you know, these maples bleed like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the glue now, and we're gonna seal it up with this. I'm really hoping that this stuff works well. If so, it's a good bonsai hack. If I can get it to come out. Guess I gotta take this thing out here first. So I'm just putting it right on there, and I'm gonna put a nice big healthy dose on there because it's clear, so you can't really see it too much. It is washable, so at some point it'll just wash off when I want it to, or when I try for that. Right now I'm keeping this tree, by the way, on my back patio, my covered back patio, so it's not really exposed to any kind of moisture. And maples are somewhat susceptible to getting a certain type of disease and fungus. I can't remember what it's called now. If I can remember, I'll put it in the description, but they are susceptible to this if they go into, particularly if they go into the fall and winter with open wounds. So that's why I'm doing this. Okay, I'm just going to continue looking for these cuts, and I'm just going to apply some of this glue on it to seal them up. Yeah, I lost a really cool maple a few years ago because I pruned it too late in the summer, or it was actually probably early fall. Can't really remember now, but it was somewhere around there. It was at a time when I should not have. And moisture got in there, and it got this particular kind of fungus or disease. Boy, I wish I could remember the name. And it died. It was a coral bark Japanese maple too. Really cool looking Japanese maple. The bark on those things turn red in the wintertime. It's the only one that I know of that does that. It's just such a cool feature and a cool tree. So I was really bummed to have lost it. And it had survived a lot too. At one point, a squirrel chewed a big chunk of bark off of the trunk. And I thought it was a goner then, but it didn't. It bounced back and survived. And then in the end, it was me that killed it. I laugh. That's how I'm dealing with the grief of it. So I think I got just about all the spots. I'll double check here once we're done and make sure I've sealed up all the cuts. And you might choose to seal them up as you go. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's probably smarter in a lot of ways. I prefer to do all the cuts and then seal them up afterwards, but you know, as you can see, doing it that way, you kind of forget where some of your cuts were, and then you end up looking all over the place. I'm seeing some now. Some of these I think are just dead ends. All right. I think that about does it. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. All right, guys, so there it is in a nutshell. Just to recap there, I didn't get too crazy. I didn't repot it yet. I'm gonna wait a couple of months for that. Just did some real minor branch trimming just to help with ramification, help with movement, help to make sure that some branches aren't getting too long and leggy in any particular place. And then I'm also trying out some new, I'm gonna call it sealant. It's actually just glue. It's just clear, regular school glue. And it's kind of running down there, so I'm gonna keep my eye on that and make sure I don't want glue getting all over this thing. The whole reason I went with this kind and why I'm trying it is because when I went with other types of glue, you could see it. And even some actual tree sealant that I use, that's black. So it's like these big black marks. It's super ugly. So I could just buy the really expensive Japanese kind that you can't see. It's kind of the same color as bark, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna try this other cheapo method for now. We'll see if it works, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, I'll have to pony up and get some of the good stuff. So I'll let you know how that works. But made a big cut there, sealed it up, and that's it in a nutshell. So let me give you a little spin here. So there it is. So there's my silver maple pre-bonsai, still in development. Hope you liked it. If so, please click like and subscribe. Leave me any comments that you've got on these. I don't find a lot of people out there work with silver maples. There's one guy down in, I think, Brazil who does. He's about the only other guy I've seen. So if you got experience working with these, share the wealth. I'll share mine and we'll all learn. So thanks for watching and have a good rest of your night.